Hi guys, it's Jayme and we are back with another makeup tutorial. So I'm just going to clip my hair back and we'll get started. So first I'm going in with the Cover FX Water Cloud Primer and I'm just going to apply that. Then we're going in with the Tatcha Silk Canvas Primer and applying that to the nose, forehead, and chin area. This is my favorite primer of all time. It's so good at smoothing out the pores and giving a flawless finish to the skin. Now we're going in with foundation, and we're going to go in with the Too Faced Born This Way foundation in the shade Pearl. So I'm going to apply 2 pumps to my little palette Petri dish there and buff the foundation onto the skin using the Real Techniques Beauty Sponge. I usually like to start by applying my foundation to my cheek areas and then blend it out from there, leaving the least amount of product on the nose and upper lip area because that's where I tend to get dry and cakey most of the time. So limiting the amount of product that I put there will help minimize the amount of cakiness that appears. Making sure to get that foundation up into the hairline around the ears and on the jawline to match your face to your neck. I am trying to avoid my eyebrows when I apply my foundation as well because I do have them microbladed, so I don't like to get too much product in them. Next I'm going in with a little bit more foundation on the cheek area just to build up where I believe I need more coverage. Making sure everything is nice and blended and going in with a Joe Fresh sponge. Oh, sorry, not yet. I'm going in with concealer. This is the Hourglass Vanish concealer in Birch. And I'm just going to apply that to the under eyes, in between the brows, chin, nose, smile lines, and just underneath where the contour goes. And I'm just going to blend that out with the same Real Techniques sponge. This sponge is damp, by the way. This was my first time using this concealer and it was amazing. It blended out in 2 seconds. The color was great. The coverage was awesome. Highly, highly recommend this concealer. Sorry if you can see me talking a little bit in the video. My sister was in the room and I was talking to her as I was doing my makeup. So while I'm blending out the under eye area of the concealer, I like to blend it a little bit on the eyelid as well. So later on I use that as an eyeshadow primer. Now I'm going in with my Joe Fresh Beauty Sponge and just patting out any extra creases or excess product that's sitting on the skin. This is just going to help make sure that everything is nice and blended on the face. Then I'm going to go in with the Hourglass Translucent Veil Setting Powder. And before I set the face, I'm just taking my Real Techniques Beauty Sponge and blending out any creases that may have formed under the eyes, and then dipping that into the powder and applying it to the under eyes, chin, nose, and in between the brows, mainly the T-zone. I tend to get a little bit more dry in my T-zone, so I like to use a sponge to set the powder, just so then some moisture stays in and it doesn't look quite as dry. After I've applied powder with my sponge, I like to take a big fluffy powder brush and powder the perimeter of the face, just making sure to set everything down. Now that the face is nice and set, we're going to go in with bronzer. And we're going to start by using the Fenty Beauty Instant Warmth Sun Stalk'r bronzer in the shade Inda Sun. I'm going to use a MAC contour brush. It's just an angled contour brush. And I'm going to start by applying that to the cheeks and forehead area to contour and bronze the skin. I normally don't contour my nose. I just take the brush and run a little bit of product on the sides of the nose so everything looks cohesive. Next, I'm going in with the Too Faced Milk Chocolate Soleil Bronzer. And I'm going to take a more fluffy brush from MAC as well and just apply that on top to further warm up the skin. With this brush, I like to take a little bit on the jawline and neck as well, just to make sure everything is nice and blended. Next, we're going with the Anastasia Beverley Hills Blush Trio in Peachy Love, and I'm going to mix the two outside shades on just a Morphe blush brush and apply that to the cheeks. And a little bit to the nose just to have that sun-kissed look. Next, we're going in with the Jaclyn Cosmetics highlight palette. This is the Flash palette, I believe. It's the lighter one. I'm going to take one of her Jaclyn Cosmetics highlight brushes and mix the two more pinky shades and apply them to the cheeks. This highlight is amazing. This is one of my first time using it, and oh my god, I just can't get enough of it since I used it. It's so nice, so creamy, buttery. It sits on the skin beautifully. Doesn't like cake up or look powdery, and if you want it to be more subtle, you totally can. You can just apply less, or you can blend over it with a beauty sponge. And here all I did was take my blush brush and just apply, like just blend it together with the bronzer and blush on the cheek so there's no streak of highlight. Next, I'm going in with the Natasha Denona Star palette, and that is what we're going to be using on the eyes. So I'm going to go in with a mid-toned brown, more on the cool side for a transition shade, and I'm just going to start to buff that from inner to outer corner on the eyelids in the crease. I'm using the MAC 224 brush to do this. I'm going to go in with a Morphe blending brush and take a little bit of a lighter transition shade. It's a little bit warmer, and I'm going to use that to buff out the edges and blend it further. And I'm going in with a more peachy warm shade on that same Morphe blending brush. I'm just applying that to the very edges of those other transition shades, just because I want a little bit of a warmer hint on the top closer to the brow bone. So I'm just really intensifying that shade and buffing out the edges, blending all those shadows together seamlessly. Then I'm taking just a clean pointed definer brush and I'm going in with a MAC Mineralized Skin Finish powder, and I'm just cleaning up the inner corner and along the brow bone where I brought the shadow too high or too far in on the inner corner. That was my sister who accidentally walked in, didn't realize I was filming. Next, I'm going to take a flat packer brush from MAC, and I'm going to go in with a deep chocolate brown, and I'm just going to pack this onto the lid. So when I'm applying a shade like this onto the eyelid, I like to just use pressing motions and pack it directly where I want the color first. And then I go in with a small defining blending brush to blend out the edges and blend it into the transition shade nicely. So you want to keep this shade a little bit lower than where you want it in the end, because when you blend the shadows together, they do tend to come up and spread out a little bit more. So if you start too high, then you'll end up with dark way too high up. So then I'm just taking a MAC 221 brush. It's a pointed, more defining, like more precise blending brush, and I'm mixing that first transition shade we used and that dark brown. I'm just using that to blend out the edges and mix them together so there's a seamless blend from the darkest shade all the way up to the brow bone with the lightest shade. So all I'm doing here is just taking that initial blending brush that we use with the more warm tone shade and just blending all the edges, and then I go in with that 221 brush that has the face powder on it and just further clean up the edges and the inner corners. You just want to make sure to really blend out the edges with the smoky eye to make sure there's no harsh lines between shades. Just dipping back into all the shades we use and adjusting and adding where we need to. This look is super easy, it's just a lot of blending to make sure that you have that flawless fade of colors. So I'm just cleaning up the edges with that beauty sponge anywhere where I brought the shadow too far. Next I'm just taking a Morphe M506 brush, I believe. It's a small defining blending brush, and I'm just going to take that warm transition shade that we use and buff that from inner to outer corner on the lower lashes. Doing the same thing on the other eye. I am going to make the lower lash line quite smoky today. You can do it to whatever level you feel comfortable with. I just really like the way a really blown out smoky lower lash line looks with a smoky eye. And I'm going to be adding in that mid-toned cool tone brown to the lower lash line as well, using the same M506 brush from Morphe. I'm not going to be adding that very dark chocolate brown to the lower lash line because I don't want to close off the eyes too much and make it too dark. But I do want to tie everything together by mixing those shadows on the bottom. Next, I'm just taking a MAC 217 brush and taking that warm transition shade and just buffing it even more on the lower lash line with a fluffier brush. It's just going to add to that blown out effect. And then again, going back in with that MAC Mineralized Skin Finish foundation powder and just cleaning up under the eyes if I brought it too far or if anything was a little messy. Now I will be right back and lashes and mascara are on. Then I'm going to go in with the Morphe eyeliner in the shade Vibes and put that in my waterline. Now going in with the Jaclyn Cosmetics highlight palette again, and I'm taking the Morphe E36 brush and I'm going to use that to highlight the inner corner and brow bone. So I'm using the more champagne pink shade to do this. So it'll tie in with what we have on our face and also just brighten up that inner corner and brow bone. Now I'm going to go ahead and take a lavish brow brush and I'm going to take that dark chocolate brown And I'm just going to press that shadow along the lash line and cover the lash band so it looks more realistic and natural. Just so you don't see any of the glue showing through. Again, just blending any edges that are looking a little harsh or needed a little extra love. Now I'm going in with the Fenty Beauty Bronzer in the shade Private Party. Or Privacy Please. Private Party, I believe. I can't remember the shade name. I'll have everything linked down below. It's just a little bit warmer and deeper than Inda Sun, and I'm just going to go ahead and add that on top of where we have our bronzer, just to warm up the skin a little bit more. Making sure to just buff that shade down the neck so everything matches, and then taking that blush brush with no additional product on it and blending over the cheeks again. And going back in with that highlight just to re-intensify everything on the cheeks. Next we're going to go in with brows, and we're going to be using the MAC eyebrow styler in the shade Fling. And I do have my eyebrows microbladed like I said, so I don't have to do too much, so I'm just going to fill them in and then set them with the MAC clear brow set. Next we're going to go ahead and line the lips with the Bite Beauty lip liner in the shade 008. And then to go right on top of that, we're going to take the Jaclyn Cosmetics lipstick in the shade Obsessed. Then we're going to go in with the Sephora collection Plumping lip gloss in the shade Extra Extra Large Nude, I believe it's called. And just apply that right on top to really juice up the lips. Then that is it for the look. I forgot to show it on camera, but I did set my face with the Morphe continuous setting mist, and that is it. So thank you so much for watching. Be sure and subscribe to my channel down below, and I will see you in my next video.